it. A very good afternoon to you, Natasha. Well, certainly, this is great news coming out of the Durban High Court. Inkosi Vela Shembe has been ruled as the rightful leader by the Durban High Court Judge Ahmed Yapi as the leader of the Nazareth Baptist Church, as we know it, Shembe. Just about 10 minutes ago, there was great excitement here outside the courthouse as members of the Tembezi faction, led, of course, by Inkosi Vela Shembe, made their way out of court. They were singing, there was dancing, ululating. Great excitement indeed by members of his faction after the court ruled that he is the rightful leader of the Shembe Church, bringing an end to a lengthy legal battle that started way back in 2011. Of course, that was after the death of the late Shembe leader, Inkosi Vimbeni Shembe. His son at the time had been then nominated to lead the church, elected to lead the church, I beg your pardon, Mduduzi. He then led the Ebuhleni faction, after which then Inkosi Vela then took the matter to court. And this is where we found ourselves today, 5 years later, with the High Court ruling that Inkosi Vela Shembe is the rightful leader of the Shembe Church. But now, joining me now is my colleague, Mduduzi. She was inside the court just to find out from her exactly how the judge came to his verdict. Sibonga, thank you very much for joining us. You were in court, Judge Ahmed Yapi. How did he come to his verdict? We know that, of course, there was the deed, the nomination of deed. That was also one of the matters that needed to be resolved here in court, as well as a letter that the late leader Inkosi Vimbeni Shembe had written, saying that Inkosi Vela Shembe should in fact become the new leader of the church.
Well, of course, Ayanda, thank you very much for your time. Of course, the bone of contention was initially the letter, but judging from the judge's verdict today, it came about that the deed of nomination was the foundation of the judge's judgment. He did base his judgment on the fact that he was totally dismissing, or rather discrediting, the fact that there was oral account given by who was one of the witnesses, which is Inkosi Ngcobo, who initially testified that the late leader Vimbeni Shembe had told him that who has to be his successor once he passes on, because he could feel that during the last days of his life that he's passing on. So he told him, as the ruler of the place where he lived in, that his successor, once he dies, once he passes on, should be his son, which is Mduduzi Shembe. But then Judge Yapi dismisses those accounts because he alludes that during Judge Ngcobo's testimony, there was a lot of contradictory between his testimony as well as that of Ubaba Unkosi Ukwabe, so that he totally dismisses the oral account, and therefore testifying that the deed of nomination is the strongest and most founding element to this judgment.
I know that obviously when coming out, we saw the leaders being whisked out of court, both Inkosi Mduduzi. He came out first, followed shortly after by Inkosi Vela Shembe. Were you able to at least speak to any of them?
Yes, of course. Yeah, as you have just mentioned, it was just a matter of a minute and the entire respondents section was totally out of court. But we did manage to rather speak briefly with the rightful successor, as attested to by the judge, which was Vela Shembe. He did make mention of the fact that although he's very pleased with the judge's judgment today, he feels as though the entire battle around leadership of the church has entirely vindicated the late Vimbeni Shembe. But of course, the judge has announced the judgment, and is very pleased with the judgment, because the judgment does then testify to his account, and it does justify the fact that he was initially the rightful leader intended.
Sibonga, is this the end now to this court case, or is there likely to be? Did any of the respondent side address the court to say that they would appeal the matter?
Dramatically, minutes after the judge's judgment, the respondents' lawyers rose up for an application of appeal. But the Judge Yapi did mention that they have to draft after reading his judgment, and the appeal might be settled for early next year.
All right, Sibonga, thank you very much for your time. My colleague Mduduzi, she was inside court and there giving us an account of Judge Yapi's judgment. Of course, that brings to the end a lengthy legal battle which began in 2011, and today the Durban High Court ruling that Inkosi Vela Shembe is the rightful leader of the Nazareth Baptist Church, as we know it as Shembe. And for now, let me take things back to the studio.